Someone had to say it. Welcome back to Someone Had to Say It. On today's episode, Julia and Heidi spoke to a best-selling women's fiction author, Sara Goodman Confino. Sara is an English teacher who started writing romance novels, and they're a huge success. They talked about writing historical fiction, about life in the 60s, how her stories came to life, why old ladies wear dark lipstick, why do they, and so much more. As always, our conversation took many directions and pivoted many times. Don't forget to order Sara's new book, Good Grief, and all the links are in the show notes. Thank you for listening. Enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode on Someone Had to Say It. I'm really excited because we have a very special guest here in the studio. Her name is Sara Goodman Confino, and she is the best-selling author of 5 novels with a fantastic new one coming out August 26th called Good Grief, and we'll attach a link in that to pre-order in that description box.
Yep.
Is that okay, Julia, or should I read it?
I'm keeping that in. That was hysterical. That was awesome.
Okay. Welcome, Sara. Do you want to just start off by telling our listeners what your latest book, Good Grief, is about?
Sure. So, hi, everyone. Good Grief comes out August 26th. It is set in 1963, and it is the story of a widow, Barbara. She lost her husband 2 years earlier. She's got 2 little kids, and her mother moved in for 2 years to kind of help her adjust to everything, her new normal. She's finally ready to do this on her own. She sends her mother home. She has a lovely day at the zoo with her kids and comes home to find her mother-in-law on her doorstep with 5 suitcases, refusing to leave.
Yeah.
And she eventually decides she has to marry this woman off to get rid of her, only to find that her mother-in-law seems to have the same plan for her, sometimes with the same men. It's a fun story of these 2 very different women learning to cohabitate and find some common ground. And I had a lot of fun with this one.
I just got to tell you, I'm reading it right now. So I was about to stop you and say, no, don't give out more. Don't give out more. Don't spoil it. I'm so into it. And I'm reading it whenever I get a chance, like during breakfast when I have a minute. And I'm so into these characters. I emailed you that I was crying, like the first chapter, just bawling because, we're not going to give away stuff, but I didn't realize that it was set in the 60s, 1963, until she looks at the calendar. It says it's 1963. I was like, oh, it could have been like today, the loss, death, anti-Semitism, nothing has changed, right? So,
well, I think part of that, if it was set today, I think she would kick her mother-in-law out. Like, her mother-in-law can get credit. She can, find a place to live much easier. In the 60s, if she doesn't have money, it's a lot harder for her to actually do much of anything. And when she's on her own like that, I think it was a very different cultural moment for this. I think today, like, if somebody showed up on my doorstep, I'd be like, nope, bye. We're going to call the police. We're done. Like, go home.
I have a question for you. What made you, first of all, I love all your books. All of your characters are so relatable. Like, they're literally all people I could just pick out that I actually know, and they're funny. And most importantly, I always love the main character. I feel like she's always like a strong woman fighting for social justice causes. And it's just, you laugh throughout, and they're always so heartwarming. But I want to know what inspired you to write books set in the 1960s?
So if you told me that I was going to be writing historical fiction, nobody get mad that the 60s is historical. I know I didn't designate it that. If anybody's listening and they're like, I was in high school then, that's not historical. I get it. I know someone who's writing a historical fiction set around 9/11, and I was like, get out. Like, no, I was.
That's inappropriate.
Absolutely not. Right?
yeah.
But so my first one was a contemporary. For the Love of Friends was about a girl who's in 5 weddings in the same summer and starts a blog to deal with all the craziness, and you can tell exactly where that one's going to go. But people loved the grandmother character, and I do read a lot of historical fiction, and I decided to give the grandmother a backstory. So my second novel, She's Up to No Good, was a dual timeline historical where it's half modern, half set in the 1950s. And then when that one came out, my editor said that people were loving the grandmother character and they wanted Evelyn vibes, but not a copycat character. She's 32 and talks like that. I didn't have any clue what that meant, but I said, okay. And, I was thinking, so I actually, that morning, it was the day She's Up to No Good came out, and my editor had emailed me and said, what's next? And a bookstagrammer had actually called me the marvelous Mrs. Confino. So I kind of had that Maisel vibe idea in my head.
Yeah.
And I liked writing that earlier time period, partially because there were no cell phones. I hate writing cell phones with a passion. I was reading a book where like the whole page screen looked like a phone screen, like the whole page looked like a phone screen with emojis and stuff. And I was like, please don't ever put that in a book again. Like, no, I don't want to see that. Like when I do dialogue for texting, I do it like dialogue. Like I tried very hard not to, I just do it as typed instead of said. But I liked that time period partially because it looked so bright and happy. Like picture Mrs. Maisel with the bright, colorful dresses and the fun hats, and everything looked so happy. But there was a lot going on beneath the surface. And a lot of what was going on beneath the surface is still very relevant today. I mean, women's rights are being walked back right now. Like a lot of the anti-Semitism that is happening right now was happening then as well, and things like that. And I love that I can talk about issues that are still very relevant today without it sounding preachy or political. And I've really just enjoyed that time period. Like pre-Kennedy assassination America had this kind of glow to it in everybody's memories, but there was a lot that wasn't great. And I'm really enjoying that. So setting stuff in the early 60s, I'm having a blast with it. My family is my main research team, actually. I started off asking my parents a lot of questions, but my parents were 9 in 1960 and they didn't remember a lot. So my dad suggested I ask my aunt and uncle, who were much older, and they have just been a wealth of knowledge. Like I can text my uncle in the middle of the night and be like, oh, how did you get from here to here before this road existed? And he knows everything. It's wild. So I'm just really enjoying it.
That's so cool. I think there's something nostalgic about the good old days, as they call them, right? Although I think for most of us Jews, the good old days probably means something different, but there was something about simpler times, right? Like you said, no cell phones, no technology, no, everything that we deal with right now, which I keep saying that if I lost my phone today, it may be such a blessing. And the other day, actually last weekend, I thought I lost my phone. And for a second, you have that panic for a minute where you just like, you feel like blood rushing to your head and you're like, like my life is on that phone. And then I just kind of looked at my husband. I'm like, would that be such a bad thing though? Like maybe this is when I go back to a flip phone, I mean, I still have kids, so I like to have a phone, and there's definitely something about that and reading about it. But you're right, there were challenges. And I feel like someone like myself wouldn't have been able to tell my mother-in-law to just take a hike because it's just not my culture, right? I think the way I was raised, you please everyone, you take everything, you accept the help, even if you don't want it. I think it's such an American way of looking at things. These are the rules. This is like how some of our, not going to mention, but some of our family members who are more Americanized that have been in this country their whole life, this is how they operate. They set the rules. This is when you can come see the baby. This is when you can stay till, and then there's boundaries. So that was really interesting to read about, and I'm still reading. So I can't wait to get more and more into, especially the whole matching thing, because, been a matchmaker for 20 plus years. So it's always very interesting. So I can't wait.
It's such a funny thing how Jewish women are just naturally matchmakers, right?
Well, my mother actually has set up 6 couples who have gotten married, including me and my husband. So
she set you up?
She did. So there are days when I blame her, but Well, so this is now an infamous story. She interviewed him for the county that we were both teaching in. She knew his aunt, and she apparently kept trying to get him to like look at my picture on the shelf behind her. And then she called me after the interview and she said, I just met your future husband. So wow, to which I replied, oh, you mean you met any random Jew off the street again? No, thank you.
Right. But that's what Jewish mothers do, It's just
Or
I was
Jewish sisters. When my sister had divorced her husband, I remember any Jewish man, my mom and I were both like, any Jewish man, doesn't matter, he can be like in the Shalom home, the old age home around here, but he still got his marbles. Why not? But I wanted
being at like the high holidays with my mom one time, and she's like, "Oh, that guy's cute," and I'm just like, "Mom, I babysat for him." Absolutely not. Or like there was one guy who was there with a girl, and my mom was like, "She doesn't have a ring on. He's for a game," and I was like, "Mom, it's literally Yom Kippur. Like, what is wrong with you?"
She's still looking. Yeah, exactly.
It's the holiest deed you can make, so why not? And
I love that she's
so
looking.
funny.
I love that your mom is like looking at other women's fingers during like, the service.
But I think that's what you do as, I don't know, it's got to be a cultural thing, I do it with my son who's 25, and my mom is doing it for him. She keeps going to the same Russian grocery store here, and it's like the only Eastern European, Russian store, but they have blintzes and, they got all kinds of stuff. And she's like, there's a girl that works there, and I walked in there to check out this girl because she keeps talking about this girl. I'm like, Mom, I'm sure she's not Jewish, and which is fine. I just want my kids to be happy, but he really wants to marry someone Jewish. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check her out. I'll go check her out. She's got a ring on her finger.
No way.
No, she didn't. The day I was there, she didn't have a ring. So it must be new. So it can't be that serious. She's got a ring. So whether it's engagement,
oh my gosh,
maybe she's already married, I remember my grandma saying, well, a wife is a wife, but while they're still dating, even engagement, they can move. It's not that important.
To be fair, my grandmother, not the one who just turned 98 yesterday, my dad's mom, she, when she met my grandfather, he was engaged to somebody else. He picked her up at the train station. She was visiting his cousin, who was her friend from back in Romania. And apparently he wouldn't take his eyes off her and just kept like staring at her instead of at the road. Broke it off with his fiance that night, and they wound up getting married a year later.
Wow. I think that's super romantic.
Yes,
but not for that other poor girl.
Not for that one. I know.
I'm sure she found her person, but can we go back to your grandma turning 98? I mean, that's huge. How is she? I know. Is she still, pretty?
Oh, she's nuts, but she was nuts 40 years ago, so I can't blame old age on that one. She actually inspired the character of Evelyn, who has shown up in all of my books so far. Loose inspiration, but my grandmother is just a force of nature. She is something else, and she still is at 98. She's actually coming to a book event I'm doing on Friday at a synagogue near her house, and she was so excited when I told her, and then she forgot, and she was so excited when I told her 5 minutes later, and I'm sure she was so excited when my mom told her today. Like,
oh my God.
I loved Evelyn, so I think everybody does. Yeah.
Getting to give She's Up to No Good to my grandmother, which is the one that was, and I dedicated that one to her. That's the one that was kind of based on some of her story. Was very special.
Oh, that's so
And the lipstick. Remember the lipstick? That was
Don't Forget to Write, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right.
Well, the funniest thing, so Evelyn in She's Up to No Good wears like this bright fuchsia lipstick that, the old lady color that just never comes off when they kiss your kids.
Right.
And my grandmother almost never wears makeup anymore. And I was at her house right after that book came out. And I was just, looking through her pantry looking for snacks that I would never keep in my house, as one does at your grandmother's house.
Yeah.
During COVID, she always keeps M&Ms. I swear we were like putting them in our mask like it was a feed bag and just, But I'm in her pantry and there's like a little thing of makeup and there's a lipstick and I'm just curious and I pick it up and I look and it is bright fuchsia. And I was like, okay, that wasn't fiction apparently.
Yeah, they all have those. My grandma carried around. I don't think she ever even really wore it, but it was always in her purse. Just in case,
You never know.
In case they need to kiss small children and leave lipstick marks for 3 days on them. Like,
Right.
Seriously, what's in that lipstick that it stays on so well? Mine doesn't stay on nearly as well as it stays on kids. Like,
do you think it was lead back then?
Maybe. I was just kind of saying, back then, all kinds of stuff they put in lips and cosmetics, but it was bad for you. But damn,
it stayed on though.
Forever. Yeah, but they also had cocaine in the soda, so I think that's how they got by through the day.
Different times.
This is why I want to go back. This is why we dream of, good old days. When anything went, right? It was just,
Yeah.
We were all, snorting cocaine
Right.
or drinking it. It can come in so many forms.
The more
I was actually doing research for that. I have there's one scene in my new book coming out called A Match Made in Brooklyn. And there's one scene, I always have to write one scene where it just has to come out of me, even though I know my editor, my agents, and all my beta readers are going to be like, yeah, no, you got to get rid of this scene. And so it was a Hanukkah party / upstairs. There was an accidental orgy scene. And there was people snorting cocaine and
I'm gonna need details on that later.
Yeah.
How do you have an accidental orgy?
People texting me, chapter 9 has to go, and I'm like, I know, but it was funny. And they're like,
tell me you liked it first, and then we can cut it.
I loved it. My husband loved it, and then that's usually a bad sign.
Yeah.
Right? You just have to sometimes just get it out of you. And I had a small person. You can't say midget anymore because that's not okay. So I'm just saying a small person was dangling naked from a chandelier. It was hilarious. It was not because
they made you cut it.
It was unexpected. Sorry. What?
Yeah. And they made you cut it.
What's that? What made me cut it?
They made you cut that scene.
No, I'm getting the edits back on the 7th, and I just know it's gonna be
right.
I think you saved that for your newsletter at that point, and when the book is out, there's your bonus chapter.
Bonus chapter, yeah.
That's so funny. You guys, after our last podcast, I did get some interesting messages. What?
Oh, you did, right? Well, because we were talking about sex toys, right? Yeah. It was very informative and educational.
We were talking about how back in those days, and I have to find out exactly what year this was. It was before the 60s. I want to say it was the 20s or something, where, women were diagnosed with hysteria.
Yeah.
So then the doctors, whoever was the doctor that came up with sex toys, before they made the sex toys, they would actually manually produce, orgasms from it, which I remember
Heidi's face right now.
Well, when I told her that, she was like, wait, we got to talk about this next time. I'm like, I think we have Sara Goodman Confino coming on. I don't know if she wants to talk about sex toys, but.
Did you know this, Sarah?
I did. And actually, there's this comedian, Ricky, I want to say Lindholm. She did this hysterical video from the Baroness's point of view from The Sound of Music about basically, yeah, it was great. But she did one about wanting to be a woman in therapy in the 1800s because they gave you cocaine and vibrators.
I mean, the thing is, I don't know that I would want to use those vibrators because I've seen pictures of what they looked like back then. And it was either, they were just very large and wooden, wood, I think they were made of wood. Then I think they experimented with metal too. There was all kinds of weird.
Can you imagine getting a splinter from?
Yeah. I'm good. That's no fun. More cocaine, please. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
One thing leads to another.
I'm hoping that they kind of shellacked it, with that whatever. When I used to, when after my dad passed, I started tearing apart furniture and rebuilding and stuff because I need to do some with my hands. And I do remember one of the first things I went to get is that clear shellac to go over wood. And I remember the other day thinking about those wooden masturbators, as they call them, whatever they call them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I really hope they were nice and smooth. Like you said, that there's no wood. I mean, I would hope they thought it through. But of course, back then, they didn't ask the women. It was just the men sitting around deciding what it would do for this hysteria, as they called it. Because whenever a woman has any kind of emotion, feelings, or thinks that she's not feeling well or this, or you're hysterical.
I would have had so many orgasms and high on cocaine if they had to deal with me back then. I would have been constantly, give her more, shove that wood up her vagina, whatever. I don't know.
I think before that, the doctors were just manually giving her an orgasm with their hands or whatever.
But did they look like Channing Tatum? Then it would be okay.
I'm sure they did not.
I would guess not.
Yeah.
Oh, ew.
But
Yeah, picture Sigmund Freud going and taking care of it. No, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm fine.
I'm less satirical, but
I'm all better.
I'll do it myself.
Oh my goodness.
It's, you know, it is. And then, you know, you read these books. So like, as I'm reading your books, you know, I'm putting myself in those days wondering, gosh, did they stop doing this stuff to women back then, by the 60s or whatever?
they did.
And then, you know, my mom she had me in 76. So, you know, she kind of lived through that, but that was also a third world country, you know, coming from Ukraine and Soviet Union. So her stories were even beyond that. Like they would have abortions with, I mean, by them, I mean like all of USSR, you know, as communism is allowed and legal without any kind of anesthetic. So
Oh
if
man.
a woman, what can you imagine? And obviously a lot of people, I'm sure, died too, women, but I think about all our dental work. There was no Novocaine. There was no, you know,
Well, the
so
abortion issue, that was how it was here too in most states, honestly, pre Roe versus Wade. I mean, think about Dirty Dancing. Like when people ask me about the 60s, like that's actually part of my answer. That's my favorite movie. You know, I used to claim more highbrow stuff was my favorite, and finally I owned it. Like Dirty Dancing is my favorite movie. It's fine. But I mean, that was, you know, and it's so funny, like you watch it again more recently and you're like, oh, this is a movie about abortion. This is not a dance movie. Like,
I don't remember that. I was about to
Penny,
say, I remember
Penny goes
in the corner. Or
Penny's medical procedure is an unmedicated abortion. And like, I can't remember the guy's name, the guy who takes her, says the doctor had like a rusty knife and a folding table. I mean, and that's why she wasn't sure she'd be able to have kids anymore. And why baby has to get her dad involved to like check her out and make sure everything was okay.
I think
it was scary being a woman back then.
Patrick Swayze, right? I never know how to.
He wasn't the one who took. Yeah, he wasn't the one who took Penny. Though it was the other friend. Yeah, because baby was stepping in for Penny while she got the abortion.
That's right. You're right. Yeah, and you know when you first watch it, and I remember my kids bought it for me because they thought it was like my favorite movie. I'm like, do you know what you're buying? Like, let's sit down and watch this together and talk about women's rights and whatever, you know.
My old dog used to go hide under the bed if she heard like I've had the time of my life because she knew I was going to come pick her up and make her do the lift. The song would start playing and she'd be dead asleep on the sofa. The song would come on and she would just bolt.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know where we were going with that, you know, abortion or the song, the dancing, you know.
See, I watched it as a teenager and I just remember loving the music and the dancing. I totally don't remember anything about abortion. Did that just go over?
My mom let me watch it at 8. I had no clue what, you know, I was just like, oh, Penny went to a bad doctor. Okay.
Yeah. And now she's bleeding.
Yeah. Oh, she had some kind of surgery. All right.
Yeah, that was probably me, like doo-dee-doo. Yeah.
Yeah, no clue. But whoosh. Okay.
Yeah. But that's interesting, right? We think about like the things that went on back then and all these back alley abortions and procedures and whatnot. And yeah, it's really, that's one thing that I've always, you know, been so vocal about is you just cannot take women's choice, women's rights away. It's because you will have a lot of dead women because women are not going to stop having abortions. Women are not going to stop, you know, whatever it is, you know, but yeah.
And a wealthy white woman is always going to be able to find a safe way to do it, whereas poorer people are not going to be able to. And that's really one of the, I mean, you know, it goes back really far with that too. There's a scene in The Great Gatsby where Owl Eyes is playing the piano and he's singing the song, Ain't We Got Fun? And there's the line, you know, the rich get richer and the poor get, and there's a long pause, children. Yeah. And it's true. I mean, it's really, and that was back in the 20s. Like,
right. I don't know that anything changes, but.
No, well, I was just thinking also a new thought, like The Great Gatsby. I remember like reading that. I read all the books that I guess that wasn't required reading in my school. I went to like a Orthodox high school, girls only school, and so there were a lot of books where I don't know if we weren't allowed to read. It just wasn't in the curriculum. So when I was pregnant with my third kid, and I was like, lying down a lot, so I remember reading The Great Gatsby, and that was something that left me. I had a lot of questions, and I had nobody to ask other than Fetus, and he never responded. But I remember
ask the English teacher. I've got this. This is my favorite book. Oh my God, my favorite moments of teaching was when like kids would come up to me and be like, do you know The Great Gatsby? And I was like, pull up a chair, old sport. Let's talk about this.
So is that your favorite book?
That is one of my very favorite books. It applies even now. Like what I thought about so much during the pandemic was how all those characters, we were seeing them today. So like Jordan Baker, for example, is the one who doesn't need to be a good driver because everybody else will just avoid her on the road because they're good drivers. That's the person who wouldn't wear a mask when everybody else was wearing a mask. Like there was just so much that was, and people who will completely change themselves thinking it's going to get them the person that they like and not realizing that they can't actually change who they are. And we see so much of that in society today. And I love that book. I actually used to live right across the street from the Fitzgerald's graves. So I would go talk to them because I'm a weirdo.
Yeah, that's so fun.
I think
if you look up their graves, I lived in the apartment building that you see literally like over their tombstone. So,
oh, wow. God, I wonder if, they say spirits don't hang around their graves, but I do wonder if there's some kind of, aura or something. No, they really do say that they move on. They don't sit around.
They move on. See, I have so many questions about this because like, do they move on? Like I thought we're also reincarnated. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, that's part of it, right? I mean, I think that was why I was looking for a medium for so long after my dad passed, was because I was like, one, I want to know that he's okay. Two, I want to know that he made it to wherever he's supposed to be and that he's not mad at us, that there's no, angry kind of feelings. And I talked to so many mediums and psychics. It was to the point that it was running my life. So I had to stop, it was just too much. Every person that has ever had a near-death experience, every person that has been touched by death has said that, yes, they don't hold any resentments, but you have to let them go. You crying, which is what made me kind of stop the crying and the hysterics, is that they can't move on while we're struggling. And that's what every single person has said to me. I've talked to rabbis, I've talked to people that, follow the Kabbalah and mediums, everyone. They said, you have got to stop this because you're hurting him.
Wow.
Whether he's supposed to reincarnate. And there's a whole thing in numerology that you're not really supposed to look into that, death and what happens after. But there's obviously, we found out that my dad had multiple lives still. This wasn't his last life. So he's going to reincarnate, whether it's they choose it, or some people believe it's chosen for you. Others believe you can choose like who you want to reincarnate. But wherever he's supposed to go in the beginning, they get there. I know I'm getting too off topic here, but there's skills that they're learning when they get up there, and they're supposed to be educating others and helping people and whatever. There's so much to it. Like that's a whole other podcast. But
well, my husband says there's a special room carved in hell for him, but he's looking forward to it. And I'm like, I'll go with you. It sounds like a good time.
I'm going to be the one there looking for a plug to plug in the dehumidifier so my hair stays straight.
That would be such a fun.
It's clearly going to be humid. I'm just telling you that right now.
Oh, yeah. Right. I mean, not like the fire brimstone, or not that, like the fire and not that stuff. But it just sounds like you're going to be with like a lot of people who like to party and have fun.
Yeah,
I'll be running the place in 5 minutes. I walk in and Satan will be like, "Oh no, I'm out. Bye."
But don't Jews not believe that?
No, we don't.
No? There's like a purification. It's not the same. I think it's more emotional than a physical thing.
Right.
I think no one really knows, to be honest. Yeah.
Right.
But I was like joking about it.
How did we get on the subject?
I want to know.
Good grief. It deals with death. It's kind of on topic.
I have more comments about the book because I am like so into it. I loved it so much. Like, you will never understand how much I loved it. You just won't. So I wrote down some of my comments. So you just have to sit here and listen to them.
I love it.
Oh no, actually, I wanted to talk about Ruth and Barbara, and they were like first of all, I think it's just so unique because I don't read a lot of books that involve a mother-daughter-in-law relationship, and yet it's something that I think most of us can really relate to. Not necessarily in a positive way, but but basically, I don't know. It's so like, why do you think more books aren't written about this relationship?
I actually had an early reader say that the book was too triggering for her because she has such a bad relationship with one of her in-laws. And I thought that was hysterical. I've never seen a trigger warning for mother-in-laws overstepping. But I think that a lot of us, it's hard having somebody else in your space who feels like they belong there when you're like, this is my space. And I think that's kind of what that mother-in-law relationship is. Like, they have a very different relationship with the person that you married than you ever will. And it's hard adjusting to that. I mean, some people have an easier time of it than others. I'm not going to talk about my personal situation with that. But, one of my friends, for example, had like the mother-in-law story from hell. Basically, her mother-in-law came to visit and got sick while there, and she couldn't get rid of her for months and months and months. And it just kept snowballing, and she's literally like sleeping on the sofa in her living room nonstop, and just it was a lot. But part of it is also this idea of trying to, the book itself is kind of about trying to do everything by yourself, and nobody can. And that's the point. It's really hard for me. It's hard for a lot of people to ask for help. I'm one of those, I will stay up all night and do everything myself if I have to, rather than ask for help kind of people. And that doesn't work, especially when you have kids. Like, you need to be able to refill your well a little bit before you can give to other people. And I think that's kind of what I was going for with this, about that learning to ask for help and learning to accept help, because I'm so bad at that. And that was one of the key points there with it. I got off the mother-in-law topic a little bit there. But, I'm very close with my parents. We live 1.5 miles from my parents. And I know full well it annoys my husband sometimes, like, that they're in our space. But they also help tremendously. And he does see how much they help me. And he does respect that, at least from that angle. But, a mother-in-law, it's tough.
It's not your mother. Yeah.
Right.
And when it's interesting because you were talking about your reader being triggered by that, and that reminded me of, I'm submitting a proposal for my book for it's a nonfiction book. It's about the matchmaking industry, kind of like an expose behind the scenes of the matchmaking industry. So it's really hard to find an agent in general, but for nonfiction, it sounds like it's like almost impossible now. But I'm looking up the bios of every literary agent before I submit to see what they're, you guys know when you send in queries. I can never say that word right. It's
Queries. That's how I say it. Yeah, queries.
Okay. And then I'm reading some of these things and I'm going, how is this okay nowadays to put everything out there as a professional, right? So I understand we live in a very PC world, and this is how, there's certain words that we shouldn't be using, certain things. I get all that. But I've taken screenshots of what the agents write, and I was sending it to Heidi going, is this for real? If any part of your book is taking place on a plane, do not send it to me. I will not read it because I have a phobia of flying. I have a phobia of heights. I have a fear of whatever. And it just goes on and on and on. I'm thinking, could you just said no planes, no books about planes. Do we need to know your whole background? Clearly something happened, or clearly there was another one that was talking about how if there's any child abuse in your book, fiction or non, I will not list. Okay, Okay, fine. Stop at that. No, she went on to explain why. And it was like a whole paragraph. And I'm going, I mean, I get it. That's awful. Nobody wants to read about animal abuse, child abuse. But I'm thinking, where are we living now? What is the world that we're living in, that it's okay to put all of your personal stuff out there, right? When I was looking for an agent for my short stories book, I ended up self-publishing because I kept getting no, 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 no. There was none of that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you know. Did you see a lot of that too? If it's about Jewish characters, don't send it. I'm not saying they say that, but did you come across a lot of that too when you were looking for an agent?
So I had a kind of strange path to finding my agent. So I really didn't see any of that. I signed with my first agent in 2012, I believe. It
Wow.
was for a book that was a comedy about teaching. I did not establish the character as Jewish at that point. I was kind of didn't know that anybody would really read a happy book about a Jewish character.
Yeah.
And that agent had me rewrite that book probably 50 times. Every time I got an email from her, I was like, oh God, she's going to make me rewrite it again. I can't do this again. And then she got heavily into romance and was like, you know what this book needs? It needs a steamy makeout scene. And I was like, it's about a teacher. Who do you want her making out with? Because we're not going there. Let's not. And then she switched agencies and we parted ways very amicably. And she recommended me to 5 other agents, one of whom we totally clicked. She's my agent today. I love her. We're good friends. Like I joke, a bunch of people are like, oh, my agent doesn't write me back. And I'm sitting here like, I have 3 conversations going with my agent at all times. We got the email for professional, Instagram for like memes and funny stuff, and then text messages for the absolutely unhinged, ridiculous mom life stuff that like you can't put online. Like mine will respond immediately to me, and that's part of our relationship. But what was really special about Rachel, so she was the one, she's not Jewish, despite the name being Rachel. And she told me to put that book in a drawer and write the next one, which the previous agent probably should have told me a couple of years earlier at that point. And the next one was For the Love of Friends, where the character was half Jewish. And I, again, was nervous. I didn't know about many happy books about death and horrible things where the characters were Jewish. And then when nobody batted an eye at my half Jewish character, I was like, all right, well, I'm going all in on this thing and let's see what happens. So my characters have been Jewish ever since. And what was really cool was after October 7th, my agent actually added to her want list that she is looking for Owen Boyce's Jewish fiction. And I felt so insanely supported by that. That was just, I remember glancing at her bio at one point. I don't even remember why I looked it up. I think because I was fixing mine for their website. And I was just so blown away by that. I love her with all of my heart. She's amazing. She's so supportive and great. I have a new editor who is pretty much the waspiest wasp who has ever wasped the earth. And she is so supportive. She's the most supportive of Jewish stories. It's crazy. I've told her some of the horror stories that some of my Jewish author friends are going through. And she's like, send them to me. Like, we got this.
Really?
And I just have such an amazingly supportive team. So I know that I am not living the same experience that most Jewish authors are right now, but I could not ask for better people in my corner when we do this whole Jewish Joy Con that like Heidi and I are part of this. I already said I want them getting ally awards. Like they have just been so amazing.
I mean, yes, let's celebrate our allies. I feel like we really need to champion them. So sorry, go ahead.
Like my editor, I mean, she made a comment about how these stories are so, so important. And I was like, you get it. I love you. Thank you so much. And it is, because when I did the Jewish Book Council, for example, which is this great organization, and you listen to all the other authors' pitches, my first year doing it, probably 95% of the books were like Holocaust fiction. And I'm sitting there like,
Wow.
hi, I write happy books. Am I allowed to be here? Please don't kick me out. And that was kind of how I hooked up with Jean Meltzer, who is how I met Heidi through, there's a joke about how do introverts make friends. I'm definitely an introvert. They don't. An extrovert adopts them and then, forces them to do stuff. Jean has adopted me.
I've heard that before, but yeah.
Well, so like this whole Jewish Women Talk About Romance Facebook group, Jean texted me one day and she was like, by the way, you're one of the founding authors in this. And the Artists Against Anti-Semitism, she was like, by the way, I added you to this group. And I'm like, okay, I just go where Jean tells me to at this point. Do what she says to do. But, she and I talked a lot about that idea of Jewish joy being so important before like all of this started. And it's true, because while that, all the suffering is definitely part of our history, it's not our whole story. And so I did a book club with a group of women in Texas after I think She's Up to No Good, who told me they had never met a Jew before. And I was like,
What? Someone actually
there are pockets. Well, I had a roommate in college who had never seen a Jew before. She thought she did once, but it turned out he just had red hair. And she was from backwoods Tennessee. There was another Jewish girl on my floor who I was friends with, and she was like, "So you two are cousins, right?" And we were like,
Oh my God.
Yes."
What?
So this book club, though, it was very nice women, and one of the women said something to me that I didn't know at first if it was a compliment or an insult. I kind of had to sit with that one a little bit. What she said was that what she loved about my books was that the characters were Jewish, but that wasn't their whole personality. And I was kind of like, thanks, I think. And the more I thought about it, and the more that I did reading of Jewish fiction, I started to get what she meant. And I compare it to the Barbie movie. You know how Ken's job was just like beach?
Right.
There are characters out there where that's their whole personality, is that they are Jewish. It's not that they're humans who just happen to celebrate certain holidays and do certain things. And while it's a huge part of our identity, it's not the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important, that people are looking at these characters in my books and other books and seeing we're all people. We have some differences, but we're all the same underneath. And that is, especially right now with all the anti-Semitism, that is such an important message. Like, we are all human. We need to figure out how to coexist at this point. And I think that's important.
That's so important. That reminds me of what my agents first said to me. They're like, "We really loved your book because this was the first representation we saw of Orthodox Judaism where people weren't dour and depressed." And for me, like, my mind was blown. And I'm like, yeah, no, we can be normal. We can be happy. And I didn't realize that's how kind of the world maybe saw Orthodox Jews. But I think, in general, when you think of racism, it's kind of like painting people by the same broad, what do they say, stroke paint, or stroke broad, menopause. I'm sorry. Whenever I can't think of something, I go menopause, even though I'm not technically probably in menopause. I just want to throw that out there.
No, apparently perimenopause is the actual bad part, and that can last like 15 years.
Yes, I was just telling Julia about that. Yeah.
We just were talking about yesterday. I found an amazing podcast that I'm going to send it to everyone. It's Mel Robbins, has the whole podcast. She's not one of my favorite people. She said a lot of shady things about Israel and whatever. She's taken them back and apologized, but whatever. The point is, she has really amazing experts. And there was this woman who's a gynecologist, and I think she's Jewish, and I'm going to find her and I'm going to put her on the podcast.
Is she a redhead? Sorry.
I think so.
Just from what the Tennessee was.
And she was talking about menopause, and I literally had to stop my walk. I was walking while listening because the only time I have. And I sat on a bench because I was like, what? I was just going, and people around me are probably going. And I texted Heidi, I texted everyone going, oh my God, I think I'm in premenopause. I'm turning 49 in a couple months. And never once did any doctor say, you don't need to go and get $1,000 MRI. You don't need a CT scan. You just need a little estrogen rubbed on your vagina. Or this is all normal. And I don't even care. I just want to know that it's normal, and then I'll deal with it. We're Russians. We survived communism, persecution, beatings, whatever. I will survive it. I just want to know I'm okay. Not a single doctor has said, oh, don't waste money. It's normal waking up with a shoulder that you can't move and you think you have an injury.
That was what was my first thing. So I had this for like 2 years. It was actually the Peloton arm workouts, like totally fixed mine. I was supposed to go to physical therapy, but who has time to go to physical therapy when you're writing and teaching and momming and all this? And one of my friends had like frozen shoulder, and she posted something on Facebook about how that was a perimenopause symptom. And I was like, excuse me? And then I started looking up other stuff. And it was crazy. So my nails are freaking terrible right now. A dog has entered the room. Come here, Gracie. She likes me to, whenever I do anything on Zoom, she likes me to put her on my lap and pet her like I'm a Bond villain. So this is Gracie.
Sandy? Gracie?
No, this is Gracie. It's actually Sandy's birthday. Sandy is 10. This is Gracie.
The schnauzer from the book?
Yep. I've got two.
Oh, you're so cute. Hello, Grace.
Anyways, so yeah, my nails have been terrible, and there have only been 2 times before this in my life when my nails were peeling and like wouldn't hold polish, and it was right after I had kids. So it's clearly hormonal, and I finally went to my doctor, and God bless my doctor. She like listens to me. She puts up with my crazy. She knows I have Googled everything, and I'm going to come in with a list of like everything that I think I have.
Right.
Because I diagnose myself frequently. My Google medical degree is my brother's an actual doctor. I drive him insane. Like I'll text him about something. He'll be like, "Did you Google it first?" If I say yes, he hangs up on me.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, so I went to her with like my whole list of symptoms, and she was like, "Yep, let's get you hooked up." And she's great.
Okay, when we talk frozen shoulder, what does that mean? Because, English is my third language. And as I get older, I'm reverting back to my native language because that's just what happens. So and a lot of times I had a thing with my eyes where I kept seeing a white spot and I thought it was my dad.
That's also, yep.
Okay, I went to an ophthalmologist $1,500 later because it wasn't covered. And she's like, "Oh, it's like retina detaching from whatever. And it's normal. It happens as you get older." And
no, that's an estrogen thing.
What? And I'm like, "Oh, so it's not my dad, just like a spirit coming," because it was like little white thing. She's like, "I don't think so," but the shoulder, it's like moving, right? So I wake up and right here, it's like somebody's pulling and I can't move. Then next day it's here, next day it's here, next day it's right here. Is that what is frozen shoulder?
So basically, frozen shoulder itself is where you kind of can't lift it above a certain point. And like, I didn't know what I did to it. I thought we needed a new mattress and that it was from sleeping on my side. Because, okay, like I said, I diagnosed myself a lot. So the reason I got a Peloton was I figured my knees wouldn't hold up from running on the treadmill. And then I started having hip pain on the treadmill. And I was like, all right, I have to do something else. So I got a Peloton. Turns out I didn't need a Peloton. I needed a new mattress. My hip, I was convinced it was bursitis. I Googled all this. I was like, and I went to my doctor and she was like, "I see zero evidence of bursitis. Like, let's talk about how you're sleeping." And I was like, "What? I needed a pillow between my knees and a better mattress." And that fixed my hip completely. So I spent $2,000 on a bike, but I love the Peloton. Like, I'm obsessed. I'm addicted. But, I don't always diagnose myself correctly, but the frozen shoulder thing. So I thought it was from sleeping on my side, and it turned out it completely wasn't. It was literally hormones just screwing up your tendons and joint stuff. And my brother actually wanted me to get like a cortisone shot for it. And my doctor was like, "Let's try physical therapy first and see how we do." And then I didn't, but did the Peloton arm workouts, and that totally like fixed me. I have pretty much full motion back. Wow. So you can get full motion back from that. But that's where, it was like 2 years where it was messed up. And I was, yeah.
That's
and
amazing.
It did not for a second occur to me that could have been anything hormonal. I figured I just messed it up.
I just feel like I want to skip this whole thing. Kind of like when I was at the doctor or the pediatrician with my daughter, and she was explaining to my daughter what a period is, and my daughter's just sitting there listening, and then she goes, "I'm not going to do that." I'm just going to skip that.
You can. To be fair, they do have medicines where you can now. You can do the pill without.
That's true. That's true. A little too late now.
That wasn't an option when we were young.
Yeah, that's right. So I have, oh my God, this is mind blowing. I feel like we're going to have to do a whole other hour and 2 and 3 and 4. But first of all, I have 2 questions, Sarah. First, you're like 30 years old. What are we talking about perimenopause? Does she not?
It's not normal.
You're my best friend. Oh my God, can we be best friends?
Please, because we're both like neurotic about stuff like that.
I am not in my 30s. My mother started me on Strivectin, which is supposed to be better than Botox, when I was in my 20s, and I stay out of the sun and good genes too. My mother really.
Now. Thank you, Sarah's mom.
I'll send you links.
Just send me links.
Heidi, you've seen pictures of my mom. My mom does not look anywhere close to that.
Yeah.
So,
well, first of all, there's probably genetics behind it too.
Oh, yeah.
And Julia, what are you talking about? You also look amazing.
I don't know.
You don't look your age either.
I also have like some weird genes on my dad's side. So like my hair is actually natural. Like this is not dyed despite my age, but my grandmother got into her close to 90s, I think, before she had to dye her hair on my dad's side. My dad actually would still have dark hair, except he got vitiligo and his hair turned white overnight. when he was like, in his 60s, and everybody was like, oh, look, he finally stopped dyeing his hair. He didn't dye his hair. He just got a skin condition that turned his hair white.
Wow.
And
Crazy.
so like the hair thing, his beard turned white early, but his hair, like some of it's still dark in the back, and it's hysterical. He's 74 now. And
Okay, so we're not going to be friends with her, Heidi. We're done because I hate this woman. She looks amazing. She doesn't have to dye her hair. Okay, we're done. No.
we also don't get cavities on my dad's side of the family. Nobody on my dad's side has ever had a cavity.
You just need an
Hi,
infusion
Gracie.
of their DNA.
I know. We're immune to poison ivy too. And nobody on my dad's side has ever gotten strep throat.
What?
We have some weird genetics on my dad's side. My dad's side also has perfect vision. I'm one of the few adults who can see.
Wow.
So like my left eye's a little worse than my right, but it was so funny. We go to the same eye doctor and she checked me out and she was like, yep, you got your father's eyes. Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
So I don't, there's plenty of not as great traits on his side as well, but we got some weird genetic stuff that I'm happy with. And
I'm always telling my mom that if we were dogs, they would have put us down, like breeding dogs. Like they would have been like, wow, bad genes on both sides. Let's just euthanize them early. Yeah.
I'm just hoping the kids get all those. Cause like I went to the dentist and my dentist was like, I think they got the Goodman teeth. And I was like, please let them have the Goodman teeth. Like we don't want cavities here.
Amazing. My oldest, speaking of teeth, he's 25. If you know any good Jewish girls, just send them my way.
That's right.
That's my mom. My mom might actually.
Yeah.
I've sent his profile to all of my matchmaking colleagues, and I just don't get young people. Most of the people that come to me are older. And he's just like, Mom, stop, please. Because, between my mom and him, it's like, okay, there's a girl. I'm going to send you a profile. Give her a call. He's like, who? What? No. Who are these people? And then, I never finished the story about the girl in the Russian store. What? Not only did she marry, but she's like got like a couple kids. And again, she looks super young. But it's his teeth. He's 25. Has never had a cavity.
Wow.
Is he related to me? Wait. Are we related? We might be.
Well, but then my other one he was like 18 when he got his first cavity, but only because he had issues. And in college, I don't think he brushed his teeth or flossed his teeth for like days, sleeping over in somebody else's dorm. I don't even know half the things that were going on there. He swears he brushed his teeth, but then I would see on Snapchat that he's sleeping in someone's dorm on an armchair, like one of those rocking chairs. I'm like, where is he? He's like, don't worry about it. It's all good. But I don't even know how we got on that subject. My second question. Yes. Very important question. Like this is one of the most important questions of today's podcast is why is it that every romance novel author has 3 names on the book?
So for mine, long story short, I self-published 2 books in 2010 and 2011 under my maiden name. And I hope I'm not going to get myself in trouble here, but I had a blog that was very popular at the time, and I went to a concert with my husband for a band that was not my scene. A lot of people doing drugs there. People were going barefoot into the bathroom, and I did a blog post about how I was just too prissy to humanly possibly be at that concert. And my husband read it before I posted it. One of his friends who was a big fan of that band read it. They both thought it was hysterical. And then I posted it and somebody put it on like some message boards for that band who did not get my sense of humor, thought my whole blog was satirical. They thought I was being serious, that I texted my mommy to come pick me up, which I, did not, obviously. Like I stayed at the concert the whole time.
Right.
And they came after my books and they actually emailed the school board of the school system I taught in and said I should be fired. And put my address online and said someone needs to throw a Molotov cocktail through this girl's window at this address.
Wow.
And the police said we couldn't do anything because it was all like online anonymous trolls.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good, and they came after those books on Amazon and like review bombed before that was even a term. And so I was not publishing under my maiden name at that point when I got a real publishing contract, and my my first editor basically said we need to kind of distance from all of that. So I did have to use my married name, and my mom kind of threw a little hissy fit if I didn't have the Goodman on there. She was like, you're abandoning your family and all this. And I was like, all right, I don't care that much. It's fine. But that is actually why we did for Behind Every Good Man. Instead of calling it Behind Every Great Man, we thought that was a fun play on the whole.
Oh, that's so cute. I didn't know that.
That's really
well,
cute.
Now with Good Grief coming out, I've now got 3 books with good in the title, and I'm sitting here like, who am I trying to convince? Like the readers or myself here?
Right.
That's funny. I loved seeing Beverly and Stuart in it again too. That was so cute.
That is my favorite thing when authors bring back characters from other books. Like Stephen King does it. I'm a huge Stephen King junkie, despite writing happy little comedies.
Yeah.
And like Beatrice Williams, who's my favorite historical fiction author, she does that, and I love getting to do that. It's just fun being able to throw those little Easter eggs in for your constant readers.
Right.
I love that.
Tracy,
wow.
Gracie Greasy. She's so cute. Oh my gosh.
Literally every virtual thing I do, she comes in and she thinks like she's the star of the show. And
she's got to be in it. Yeah. My dog used to do that too. She would sit she was very big, so I couldn't pick her up, but she would sit right next to me, and then she would pop up once in a while, just like, are you done yet? Can we go now? But yeah, this is so amazing. I feel like we can talk forever. But I'm sure you have other things to do.
Like some writing.
Yeah, my kids will eventually be home.
Yep.
Yeah, so I feel like you need to have like a whole litter of kids just to spread those good genes.
Yeah, you need to have a litter.
I'm good. I got 2 boys, and that is enough. I was not prepared for 2 boys. I pictured our mornings getting ready for school. We were going to cuddle and we were going to read, and it was going to
hair. Yeah,
it is WWE every day in my house. I'm like breaking up fratricide fights where they're like trying to kill each other, and
I hear you
everywhere. Like I was not.
Oh, you also have this. I have 2 boys. We all have 2 boys here.
Yeah,
but mine are 7 years apart. But I had to break up fights between them.
But see, at least you had a girl too.
But she was the worst. She would bite my older one.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah, no, I joke. Living with her is like living with a mother-in-law that you just like,
there you go.
Just last night, she goes, "Oh, I see there's some dishes still soaking in the sink." She just kind of goes, "Oh, they're still there soaking."
Oh my God, you need to write a book about her. Like you need to have a character just based on her, because all the stories I'm hearing about your daughter, I'm just like, I want to meet this girl. Like it's so funny because I didn't think I would have boys. I just thought I would have girls. And all my cousins were girls, and I do have a brother, but he's like the only boy. And so when my first one came and I was like, oh, I'm having a boy. Okay, fine. Next one will be a girl. My kids are 5.5 years apart because it just wasn't happening, And the second one's a boy. And all of my mom's predictions, I don't know if you know, like the old Jewish Russian ladies do this thing with the ring. I guess when you're pregnant, or maybe it's not when you're pregnant too, but I think it's when you're pregnant, you put your hand out and they take a ring and on a string, and if the ring goes without moving it, they're just holding it, and if the string moves in a circle, that means it's going to be a girl. If it goes up and down, then it's a boy, I think. And every time it showed a girl for me, but my mom has never been wrong with anyone else, just with me. I'm like, okay, that.
Well, I have a tremor, so for me, everybody would have a girl.
Right. I know what you mean, but hopefully your boys are not going to do what my boys are now doing, which is one is racing cars. The other one is flying helicopters. And I say on a daily basis that they're trying to kill me, slowly kill me. They're doing it just to piss me off. And then I shouldn't even say this. They don't listen to anything. But, they'll call me and they'll let something else out, something crazy they did. And like, what? Don't tell me this. Like with my youngest, he's about to get his private license, and then he wants to do like EMS helicopter rescue. So, in a helicopter, it's harder than a plane, and you can't really let go at all. He can't even like take a sip of water, whatever. Long story short, he is telling me how he has to do a solo flight. So I'm like, don't tell me until you've landed, because it's like on your own, and he's in Hawaii flying over water and other islands. So he did call me yesterday and he's like, so I just did a 2-hour solo flight. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. You're safe. He's like, don't worry. I'm not flying alone for like a very long time. I'm like, okay, I can sleep for the next 6 months or whatever it is. So hopefully your boys are going to be like doctors, lawyer, maybe like,
I think we'll have lawyers. They like to argue.
There you go.
That's
Or
better.
wrestlers or wrestling. Mixed
Yeah,
martial.
they could be wrestlers. Oh God, it's my my almost 5-year-old at preschool drop off a couple weeks ago. Like, so I'm putting away his lunch. I'm talking to the teachers, and my youngest climbs up on a chair, jumps onto my oldest, flattens him, and just starts pummeling him. And I'm sitting here like, they're going to call CPS on me. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. But
You know, one of the teachers also has 2 boys, and she was like, "Yep,
oh my
that's
God.
normal." Okay.
Yeah, this is just, which is, I think they grow out of it at times. My youngest, I joke, and we talked about this before. We used to put knives away at night because he would sleepwalk, and he had an anger problem. Like he
Oh
he
no.
was one of those Children of the Corn, movie. Like he would just stand there. He was blonde, like had long blonde curly hair. He had green eyes. And he would just stand there like this. Literally, his eyes would be huge. And he would sleepwalk. He'd walk in your room and just go, just
Oh,
stare at
that's
you. And
yeah.
My
so
little guy sleepwalks. Yep.
Oh my
it was
God.
like, it was the creepiest thing ever. But
There's
he
nothing worse
grew
than
out of it.
waking up and they're standing at the side of the bed staring at you. Like my little guy usually just gets in our bed and he's not even awake. He just, you can put him back in his bed 50 times. He sneaks out 51 times. Like he's
Wow.
going to wind up in our bed one way or another. But
Yeah.
the few times he's just been at the edge of the bed staring at me, like, no, nope, nope, nope. Did not sign up for this.
That
It
is so creepy.
Yeah. My oldest caught us. He came in. I don't know if he was awake or sleepwalking or what. He was like 8 years old, and we were in the middle of doing stuff, and it was like he just stood there. And honestly, I still don't know how long he stood there, but he was there for a while. He saw some things, and I think he still remembers it. And later, when we noticed him standing there quietly in the corner, like I remember walking in on my parents, but I shut the door and I ran out. I didn't want to see there. So
Oh
I
wow.
remember thinking, why would you just stand there? I'm hoping he was sleepwalking. We haven't talked about it. That was many, many years ago, but that was scary. Anyway, that's a whole other podcast. Children that sleepwalk.
Yeah, the worst has been like I'll be coming up the stairs to go to bed or something, and my little guy's just standing at the top of the stairs, like not quite awake and just standing there looking at you and not seeing you. And it's like, okay, creepy child, go away.
You need a
I
gate.
always joked about that. I was like, what if I have a creepy kid like out of a horror movie? And then
Now what? Yeah.
That's a good Jewish character, though. I don't think there's many Jewish characters that, the creepy, weird kids like that, So there's a whole book right there. But anyway, I feel like we need you back to talk about so many other things.
Happy to.
She'll be back. Yep.
Yes, please do. There's so many things, and I'm going to go and order Strivectin now. I don't know if it's too late for me.
It's good. No, it works really, really well. And they have a retinol version for at night too. And it was created for stretch marks. And I guess a package was mislabeled and somebody started using it on their face. And it worked really, really well. So I've been using that for like 20 years now. I mean, it's good stuff.
So I'm behind. I'm like fucked.
No, but that's my mom. My mom will spend for the expensive skincare for me because if I look younger, she looks younger. It's great.
Right? Exactly. Oh my God, I love it. Yeah. Well,
Oh, she bought me one of those red light masks. She wanted one, and there was a 2-for-1 deal, and she was like, "Okay, you're getting one too." So I do that for 10 minutes a night now too. And
what is it?
I never even heard of that.
You haven't seen those? Okay, now you're gonna. If your phones are out, you're gonna start getting Facebook ads for these. But it's those like red light masks that it's the red light therapy, and I have the Solar Wave one. I love it. It's like just 10 minutes of self care a night, and I've got the like neck and chest one too, and because 2-for-1 again.
I've heard of red light therapy, but I didn't know that.
So
I thought that was like
at home
body aches. Oh.
It's for a lot of things, but it's good for anti-aging and collagen production and all of that. So.
Okay. I just think of red light in Amsterdam, like the
red light district.
Oh, you look terrifying with it on. I saw a couple of reels where like people were saying, "Oh, this is how you stop your kids from getting out of bed at night. Have them come in when you're wearing this." And except my kids just think it's funny and call me Darth Vader. And
right. That's so funny.
Yeah,
the red light district is something else.
a little different than this.
Red light, and that's what I think of.
Yeah, I'll take you there.
Okay, yeah. I don't want to be in the display. Daniel was there, my husband, and he said, they're like in windows on display, and they just kind of wave to you.
See, I can't go there because I'm going to want to rescue all of them because a lot of them are trafficked.
Yeah.
From what I hear, they've cleaned up and now it's really just, sex workers that want to be there on their own volition. But I don't know. I have my doubts, and I've done so much work with human trafficking victims, just the girls that they were bringing over after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So I'm not allowed to go there because I'm just going to be like probably arrested trying to get them out. But so anyway, but yeah, no, thank you for talking to us. This was
Thank you.
so good.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
We absolutely loved you, and it's totally our pleasure. We hope you'll be back. I hope it was fun for you.
It was.
Yeah, she had fun. Yeah.
And Gracie clearly had fun too.
Look at Gracie. She's too cute.
She's the star.
Yeah,
of the
she's
show,
a little
really.
troublemaker, but you're
Yeah.
a troublemaker.
Love that
Oh,
face.
well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for talking to us. I cannot wait to finish reading your book, and I'm going to get all your books now. I will definitely have you back on.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share. And even if you didn't enjoy it, share anyway. Thank you for listening, and come back to Someone Had to Say It.